Good afternoon. My name is Chuck Edwards. I don't know exactly what I'm wanting to try to accomplish with these videos, but I do believe that I'm supposed to make them. I've never done anything like this. I had to get my son to show me how to upload a video. This is not anything that I really necessarily expected or thought I'd be doing, but I feel it's important, and I feel like the Holy Spirit is leading me in this direction, and so I'm gonna I'm going to obey. Let me kind of give you a little bit of feedback about me or context about me. I born in '67, so over 50 years old, and it was a couple of years ago that I found myself in really the worst stretch of my life. I'd spent my entire life trying to do the right thing and build build up something good and treat people well, and I had all of the check marks of things that were successful, and went to school and had some good jobs, and so everything seemed to be on a path. But a couple of years ago, it got off track. I had some struggles that were affecting our family business of 40 years. There was a lot of confusion. I was feeling beat down in a lot of ways, and so I came to a realization on April 3rd, 2016, that I needed to stop trying to do everything my way or try to figure out a solution to this big problem of life or whatever. And instead, I surrendered myself at that moment on that afternoon. At probably the lowest point in my life, I surrendered myself to Jesus and said, "Listen, I'm tired of trying. I don't know what I was thinking, and please, take me in your arms and solve my problems the best way that you know how, in your will and not in mine." Here's what was so fundamental about that for me. I had not grown up in a church, a religious family, and hadn't really gone to church. Occasionally with some friends when I was growing up, and I never really had a problem with religion, but I just also didn't really know anything about religion, and I also didn't know anything about uh, the Bible or verses or teachings at all. I mean, I knew the big stories that everybody probably knows, but I didn't know anything else other than that. And well, for me, it started a few months prior when I began to really question so many aspects of my life, and I was just at a loss. That proverbial lowest point. Um, I, I basically asked for a few things. I sat there with a man that I just barely known. I'd met just a few months prior, and I had been going to a church with some friends, and there was something about him that sort of I was drawn to, almost like a grandfather or so type of person, and he made me feel comfortable, and he made me understand that I wasn't alone. And then at that moment, I mean, I don't really hardly even recall exactly what was said or what was done, but I do need to share with you that on that afternoon, whenever I gave up, I surrendered and put everything at the feet of my Creator. Uh, it it was not insignificant. I had spent my life trying to, learn about meditation and mindfulness, and I had, read about Greek philosophers and Roman philosophers, and I kept trying to find a way to make a better version of myself. But one place that I never went until that period in my life was to God. The one place that it turns out that I should have been all along. And the the reason I bring it up is on that afternoon, without virtually any real understanding of the scripture or His Word uh, uh, or anything like that, I just got overwhelmed with this realization that that was what I needed to do, and and then equally afterwards, it was distinctive, and it was frankly overwhelming. It was distinctive and clear to me that I was never going to be the same. I didn't even understand why. I didn't even understand. I mean, I had always I just didn't really grasp it, but I just knew that all of a sudden, these things that I had been battling, and demons within myself, and struggles and challenges, like somehow or the other, it just kind of washed away for a period of time, and for many weeks, really, it was the most uh, almost bizarre, but in a great way. I don't know if I can't find the right word at this moment, but it was so significant and so absolutely clear, and I could do nothing but just embrace it. And so here's what I mean by that. I asked on that afternoon. I'd ask for a couple of things, and I don't know if you necessarily want to know or hear about the specifics, but I had felt like I was just lost and blind. Like, how could I not see some of these things that were going on around me when they mattered to me so much, when they were the most important thing in my life? How did I miss those? Uh, and I wanted it, and I also felt completely controlled by things outside of me. My schedule controlled me instead of me controlling my schedule. I was like, my low point may not have been like others. It may have, some people may have hit the bottom of the barrel there with maybe drugs or alcohol or other kinds of types of things like that. Well, in my case, I was addicted, um, but not to drugs, not to alcohol, not to stuff like that. I was just addicted to work. I mean, I, I, I felt I felt the strain and stress of having no control over the situation, but feeling as if somehow or the other, if I did things right, then I could gain control. And it was a very, 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 very negative, dark time, and it affected my family dramatically, and it still to this day affects my family in a way that just kills me, Dan, I'll tell you to think about, because I spent too much time devoting my energy to to the things that didn't matter. But what happened on that afternoon, uh, and I'm sorry to ramble, like I said, I didn't know how to go about doing this, and I hope that you still will stick with me during some of these videos. But during that afternoon, and certainly during the day or two following, it was intense. It was the only real way that I could explain it. And it was because I recognized things that had happened in my life in a whole new way. I had seen and heard things that my wife had maybe told me before, many times before, and I was hearing it almost like in a new language, I guess is the best way I can think about it. I don't speak a second language, but if I was in another country and I'm trying to make sense of what they're saying, and then all of a sudden here comes somebody who speaks English, and bam, I got to figure it out. This is how I felt like for days afterwards, for really a couple of months, was that all these things that I asked for and were now clear. And I've said this a couple of times to different people over the last, since 2016, but, I'd heard the hymn Amazing Grace numerous times, like people will, in just normal course of the day. But there was something about that. I mean, that statement, I was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. It made all the sense to me in a way that I'd heard those same words hundreds and hundreds of times. But somehow the other now, whenever I thought about it, I knew that I had the support that I had been looking for, or I had the direction and the sense of peace that I just could not find any other way in my life. So here I am. Now, that was April 3rd, 2016. It's not as if things immediately flipped the switch and have been perfect. Still working through some struggles within the family business. trying to make certain that my actions, I stop and I reflect and I pray about them. I consider what would the will of God be in this? How does the book itself give me direction and help give me examples and samples of things that are going on, so that I will treat the people around me that I'm at, in a way that I want. Uh, and I don't know how, now that I have experienced the last couple of years, I really don't know how I was able to survive that 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 lack of awareness that was out there before, until it's almost 5 decades before I came across this. I just don't get it. It's amazing to me how different it is. But this is why I'm doing these videos, because I made that decision, and it's the best decision I ever made. And I believe it will be the thing that will always be the most important decision of my life. I think it will help me restore my family in a way that it needs to. I think it will help me rebuild my business in the way that it needs to be, because for me, it stopped being about what I thought was right, or what I thought that person needed, or what I thought would be best in a certain scenario. It's like I really now have a focus. My focus is like sharp, clear, sharp. It's like and everything that I can sense sometimes when things happen. Oh, I know how the old me would have dealt with this, and but man, the new me, it's just different, And I hope people have noticed, and I do believe they have. People that have been around me have recognized and seen that difference in the way that I respond to things. Like I said, it wasn't as if I was an angry person, or did things that were that I'm embarrassed or ashamed of. But all of us could be better, right? I'm going to turn this down because I don't want it to keep buzzing in us. Excuse me. But here's what's been happening lately, and here's why this video is here today. And I'm going to put it up there, and then I'm going to add some more. I'm going to add some more. The first one I felt just needed to be about my testimony and help you understand what was going on. A few months ago, I was really, really struggling. I read things in the book, in the good book, and I mean, I grab a lot out of it, and it's the most enriching piece of my day most of the time. It ought to be all the time. And so what happens is, like I went, I taught higher ed for a few years. I've spent a lot of my life, logic, science, going through those steps to understand things, and I come across contradictions. I come across things that just don't make sense. And I was in one particular stretch, I was dealing with these kinds of conflicts in my mind. It didn't change my overall view. Doesn't change at all where I feel like I'm now at. It doesn't take away from any of that. But I'm like, what? Okay, help me understand this. And I was thinking about these tough questions that I came across. And one afternoon, I was just kind of like killing some time in the afternoon, and I went to this bookstore. In the bookstore, this was just like the next day, 2 days afterwards or so, right afterwards. And I'm sitting there looking through this bargain bin, and I come across this book, 100 Tough Questions about God in the Bible. I wasn't even looking for it. I didn't walk in there with that in mind. I was actually, I think, going in there for something totally different at the time. And I always like to go look at the books whenever I go to a place that have them. And bam, here's this book, Tough Questions, a couple of times in a row. Then a couple of days later, I'm at a luncheon, and there was a guest speaker at this luncheon. And this person at the luncheon stands up and says, what we really want to be as a group of men, it was about a luncheon for men. What we want to do is be better prepared to answer those tough questions for like our family and for the people we care about. So this is like 3 times, like in a short amount of time, like in a matter of a few days, that his whole point of his message and the message of this book and the thoughts that I were having those days before were all about these tough questions. Don't steer away from them. Don't pretend like they're not there. Don't act like they're not important, because they are. But recognize them, and then let's just let them be part of the process that we need as a believer, as a Christian. What do we do with those? Because if we're not honest with ourselves about them, then we're not going to be able to help someone who isn't a believer, who might be working their way through a journey that might eventually get them to a better life, like I now have, that I wish I'd had decades ago. And then the final thing is, I was watching a secular TV show. It had nothing to do with, the topics that were at hand. And this particular person was talking about reaching an audience, and reaching an audience that were not believers, as it turned out, the way that the story was being displayed. And he was talking about wanting to do the right thing and being there to help answer questions. Answer the tough, he used the same phrase, tough questions. So I'm like, okay, gotta get it. Okay, here, you want me to focus on these things, and so this is kind of what these videos are about. I'm gonna call them like tough questions. I'm every few, maybe once a week or so, I'm gonna try to just pose them, and I don't. Really even know which ones we want to tackle. I don't even really. I'm not a theologian. I haven't went to seminary. My goodness, I've tried to read a lot of the Bible in the last couple of years. And I have read some of the parts of the Bible several times, and others not at all. And I read, I scratch my head like the others with some of these areas. And so I'd really want to just treat it as, hey, let's throw it out there, and as a community of fellow believers, or maybe as somebody who is not a believer that has always had a similar question, pose it out there, and let's see what we can gather from having a dialogue, because I think the dialogue is really the point of what God's trying to do here. I'll throw a few things out. It doesn't have to be these. These really were not the ones that I had in my head, but it'll give you a sense of the kinds of things that I'm going to try to tackle. And like I said, I'm not going to necessarily do one today, because you already listened to my testimony, and I don't want the videos to go too long. But there's one of the things that a nephew of mine mentioned to me, because he knew I was a new believer. He goes, I mean, you really think that the world was created in 7 days? Or 6 days, and 7th day was the rest. So he asked this question because he's 20 or so years old, and he wants to understand that. You really think the world is only so old? And so those are important questions. There's a couple of big ones that we're probably going to tackle that we probably all either heard or just almost expect them to be the top 5 someone would tell us. But there's others, it could be something as simple as, did people really live to be 5, 6, 7, 900 years old? That's what the Old Testament says. Are we supposed to look at these things as a different time in which there were different things going on? But what is our goal here? And I've got some thoughts, and they're going to be different than yours, I'm sure. And that's really what I'm hoping the comments and things that people might provide there. I'd like to just, and it really isn't even an attempt to get the answer. This is what is new about me. As someone who went to college and earned a couple of degrees and ended up teaching at the college level for a while, I was always trying to search for the right answer, whether it was with the struggles, within my family's dynamics, or within the business. I always kind of kept thinking there's got to be a right answer on some page somewhere. I need to flip to that right page, and then I'll dedicate my time. I will give it 100%. And then that way that solution will happen. It will be there. I've learned that's really not the way it works, right? And I needed to stop trying to find that solution. Instead, just be there. Be there for the people at the office, and do everything. Be an example. Have them see Christ through me as an example, and then just make the best decisions I can, and trust God. Trust God's will for me more than my own capabilities. So this is something I've never done. I'm going to try to see if we can create some interest. I think might be meandering a little bit now, so I'm gonna stop this one, since it just was mostly about my testimony. I'll make another one in a day or so, and we'll tackle a couple of questions. But here's the one that was on my mind. Okay, so if God is the God of love, and I certainly feel it, God is the God of love, then why all the violence in like the Old Testament? Why would there be wars in which certain villages would just be totally destroyed or killed and murdered? Why does this happen as a course of events when it has been either directed or planned uh, by the God of love? Is this really something that makes a lot of sense? And so, no, still, I'll tell you right now, when I ask the question again, I'm like, how could you say on one hand that 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 God and Jesus is there for you and loves you unconditionally, and then also say that because of the circumstances, these other certain individuals are to be eliminated, let's say, for instance, like in a wartime situation. Uh, let's think about that. That's the one I'll just start with to kind of give us some dialogue and communication. And then the next time I'll probably have 3 or 4 questions that are kind of on my mind, and we'll reconvene. Like I said, I think what I'd like to do is sort of think of these as like tough question Tuesdays or something, right? So that this way you'll sort of know when I'm going to put something new, but maybe we can get some links going. The people can respond with different places that they can go answer these questions. I've watched different videos and things over the time when I was trying to get an answer to a question. And so this can maybe be an archive or a database. And that's what I'm hoping, right? And whatever God wants from this, I'm hoping I'm able to reach that person. I believe that He's going to put me in their path, and feel free to email me or send a message, and I'll reach out to you as well. Because the thing that is absolutely true is, for me, is that I get why people doubt. I spent decades doubting, all right? And even if I wasn't like overtly against God or religion or whatever, I still had my doubts, right? And they dictated my life before, and now they don't. So how is it, like, for instance, my oldest son is a skeptic, and he, um, how could you possibly think this? And what this way? And why do you have these thoughts? And so my question is to him sometimes back is, well, it's why wouldn't it answer for me the same types of things that other people attempt to answer in a different direction? And one of the ways that I try to point out to him, and I'll kind of close with this, is he'll say something to the effect of, it's meant to sort of guide people, make them feel more comfortable, but it's really more for the gullible minded, or something like that. Any clear thinking person would realize that they're being controlled. Let's just say. So my counter to him was, well, here's the thing. I see where you might be coming, from with that line of thought, but if you're talking about a fad or something that kind of has, a short-term fix to it, then people wouldn't stay there. What God provided for me on April 3rd, 2016, was so real and so clear and so profound that it's not going to go away just because of some little doubts or things that I might have had. And because it was so real, even though I don't understand it, even though I don't really, I'm thinking, golly, if it was just that simple, only if I'd done that when I was 20 and not 50, right? I don't understand it, but it has to have some validity behind that event, or there wouldn't be generation after generation after generation and tons and hundreds and thousands of years of people who have gained from it. Eventually, it would just peter away and die, right? Because you wouldn't have that very real effect. It's like riding a roller coaster. It's great excitement, but then when it's over, it's over. You just this is not a roller coaster. This is a change in perspective, and so I hope my change in perspective will help you at some point. I hope that we have um, a chance to tackle some questions. I hope you don't think I got a little too long-winded today. I'm going to most of the time try to keep these at about 10 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes, and then that way we can get into the comment section a little bit more and devote a little more time to that kind of thing. This one I just wanted to make sure people understood who I was and where I was coming from and why I was out there just trying something different. And so please, everyone, be safe, and I will catch you probably in about a week with another installment with some additional questions, and hopefully hear from you soon. Thank you.